Now let's see here. Things I need to make a video on. Oh, it's getting piled high. Oh hey, Amphibia! Man, Disney television animation has been doing really well as of late. We've got the Tangled series, the DuckTales reboot, Big Hero 6 series, Big City Greens, and most recently, Amphibia. It's nice to see Disney pump out cartoons for television. So, what's with Amphibia? What's the big deal? Well, it all starts with Matt Braley. He was a storyboard artist on Gravity Falls, and later became a director for that and Big City Greens. Around 2016-2017, we don't know for sure, he pitched the idea of Amphibia to Disney executives, and it took him 2 years before getting greenlit. Fun fact, the show was actually based off his childhood memories of him going around in Bangkok, Thailand. Just like Gravity Falls was inspired by Alex Hirsch's summer in Oregon. Makes you think a little bit. Maybe there was a bit of inspiration going on there. And I know what you're all asking. How does it measure up? Well, join me today as I dive into this series and find a fair and critical assessment. I want to start off by saying that this show is heavily inspired by Gravity Falls. It's practically its spiritual successor. It's so similar in tone, humor, and character design, like literally everything. It just looks almost identical. It's almost like it was the same people that made that show made this show. And it really shows for the art direction. The way the characters are designed is practically the same. Big eyes, close together, little stubby noses, except for on the frogs, because they don't have noses. But the people look like they would just be walking around Gravity Falls, although the teenagers that we see in the photos do seem to be slightly centralized and just, not different and varying. Although the frogs do have different and varying designs, albeit only 4 or 5 different types. But some of the monsters that they come along are just legitimately scary in my opinion. Like, they really go for the whole bug aspect of these giant praying mantises and these giant bugs, and just, it creeps me out. It takes me back to the days of watching Genndy Tartakovsky's cartoons. They were going for monstrous and absolutely nailed it. I really do like the setting in this show. It's like Super Fantasy Frogland the Ultimate. Giant bugs, everything's been made huge. Frogs are now the size of people, and bugs are bigger than frogs. Like, some of the scaling is kinda weird, but you get creative license when you're like building worlds, so I'm gonna let this one pass. And I actually think it does work to the benefit of the series. The animation is actually pretty good. It's about the same caliber as Gravity Falls. Above, okay. I mean, it's no super flowy bouncy, but it does work pretty well. It's very watchable and almost enjoyable, but, not quite there, so it doesn't get any accolades for that. It's just above average. Thank God it's not stiff. As for the storyboarding, I see a little inconsistency with, proportions. Not everything's quite on model, and if you actually look at how the animation process is done, it's usually the storyboarder's fault if something's not quite. I'll notice the size of Anne's hands seem to change a little too much to be comfortable. Also, how they connect to her wrists just look kind of weird, but that's more of an art direction thing. The angles that the show gives us are fine, they're passable. It's nothing to go on and on about, but still, it's very good. I mean, I wish they were a little more inventive with how they did it, but still, it works, and I'm happy for that. I only see a weird angle once every 5 episodes, and that's pretty good. I can actually really appreciate the tone of this series. It's a more lighthearted but mystical and adventurous feel. It's like what I love to see in a TV series. They're my favorite genre to watch. And the jokes are just solid, good, consistent humor, lots of land shading, making fun of tropes and whatnot. It's just absolutely hilarious and love to watch it.
Do you get the feeling this is one of those decisions we'll look back on and say, "Ooh boy, we probably shouldn't have done that"?
We'll get swamp slushies while we're out.
No regrets!
But it's also got this kind of seriousness to the severity of the situation. that I can always appreciate and look back and say, hey, it did that right. And the voice acting reflects this. There aren't any particular voices I liked, but everybody who was there did a pretty good job. But the only person I didn't really thought was doing a very good job, it was probably going to be Polly's VA. I feel like there are just some lines that come off a bit awkward and just don't flow that well. And everybody else did a pretty good job. Oh, but now that I think about it, there is one voice that I really like. Captain Grime. I really like his voice. It's very smooth yet intimidating. A lot like Slade's, actually.
These are the Valley's strongest warriors. Pathetic!
It works very well for the role. A good casting decision. Ah, how I miss Teen Titans. Well, how were the characters? The characters are actually pretty good. I like Anne as the main character. We get to see a lot of different angles of her, and I think she's a really well fleshed out main character. And the best part is she actually has a character arc. She goes from being ever so slightly selfish to actually being somebody who's working for their friends and considering their feelings. And she does so in a very convincing manner. The people who wrote this character were very good at writing characters. And then we have the counterpart, Sprig. Well, not really a counterpart to Anne, but more or less a second head to bounce ideas off of. And whenever you see these two interacting, their dynamic really shines. Somebody put a lot of thought into these characters. Or just got lucky. I like to stay optimistic and think that they actually put thought into the character dynamic. And Sprig on his own also gets a lot of attention. Like in that episode where Sprig challenges Hop Pop's ideas and tries to get the suggestion box. I think that was a pretty good episode for that character. And like every other one, it's actually done pretty well. And it always ends with growth in the end. I just hope that they don't backtrack in Season 2 and go over what they've already done, established. That would be horrible. And something I actually didn't see coming was Hop Pop. Like, he is an actual character with an actual arc. I just thought he was going to be the old man that was just going to be there in the background as a supporting character, but he actually takes a role in the plot, and that's actually quite mind-boggling to me. I mean, it was a really good move. I just would have never thought to make it. I need to write that down. Give unsuspecting characters good roles. Great grammar, Fliss. But if I'm being honest, Polly is kind of annoying to me. It feels like this whole cute thing that is absolutely destructive trope has been used way too much in recent years of animation. I mean, I've seen it done in Secret Life of Pets multiple times, and I mean, the character does have good moments, it's just, I feel like the tropes that they're using are just kinda, overused. But, again, she does have character growth. There are some episodes that I think demonstrate this really well, like the episode where she gets in a war with Sprig over that dumb TV show. She has redeeming qualities. She's just not one of my favorites. And yeah, the entire cast of the main four is very well fleshed out and used very well. They never waste a single second of screen time, and that's awesome. And something else that this show does that I can really appreciate is the fact that it doesn't rush the dynamic between Anne and the villagers. It actually flows well. First she seems like a monster, and at the end of the season she's viewed as another one of them. And we see this slowly build up. It's like the main arc of the first season. Hilda, you should take some notes. I'm so glad that they did this, though. It made for an interesting angle, and just drove the story in a narrative that we wanted to go. Also, the flow of the show. I never feel bored watching it. It is done very well. They know how to pace their episodes individually and make them entertaining to where I never felt like clicking off and going and doing something else. Always just sat there, watched through the entire episode, not wanting to take a break. It was so enjoyable. They kept me interested, which is really good. Also, I've never had to suspend my disbelief, like ever. can't think of a single instance where the show has made me done that. And also, there are no episodes that I outright hate. I can sit through and watch any of the episodes and say, yeah, that was a good episode. I can only name about 1 or 2 that I wasn't particularly fond of, but still, I can appreciate them, and I wouldn't be thrown off at all if somebody said that they liked this episode. The show is just very well done in the writing department. You see, kids, this is what happens when you use your brain. So how was the first season as a whole? Well, the writing was absolutely phenomenal. We got a lot of good characters and a lot of good character arcs to go along with them. The writers knew what they were doing, they had a solid plan, and they executed it well. The animation and storyboarding is okay. I mean, they could be a little bit better, but, I'm not going to complain. It's not necessarily broken. I mean, as long as it's watchable, I'll watch it. The voice acting is well casted, and the humor is good and consistent. And the pacing is done well. They don't rush anything. They just have it work out naturally. And what do I rate the season as a whole? I give it an 8.4 out of 10. It's up there with the really good stuff like Full Metal Alchemist and Avatar: The Last Airbender. But alas, this is only one season. If they stick the landing and keep making good content after this, I think we're gonna see a 9 out of 10. Here's to being optimistic and saying that they do stick the landing. But there's no denying the fact that this show is heavily based off Gravity Falls. Like I said, it's practically its spiritual successor, and if you like that show, you're definitely gonna like this one. You have made Lord Hirsch proud. And with that, I think I've spoken my piece on Amphibia. If you like the video, hit that like button. And if you think your friends will like it, share it with them. If you like my content, subscribe please. I would really appreciate the subscribe. If you have something against my argument, please leave a comment. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And with that, Fliss out.